So, Edward Feser wrote a blog post titled "A Difficulty for Craig's Kalam Cosmological Argument." In it, he questions one of the main reasons for thinking the past cannot be infinite. He writes, "A third reservation has to do with the question of whether one can really demonstrate that an infinitely old universe is metaphysically impossible. I'm not sure that Craig's metaphysical arguments for that conclusion work." Feser tacitly agrees that an actual infinite is metaphysically impossible, yet he questions the implications of such a denial. Further, he writes, "How does this show that an infinitely old universe is impossible? In particular, how does this show that there could not have been in the past an infinite series of hours, days, or years?" Craig is a presentist. That is to say, he thinks that it is present things and events alone that exist. Past objects and events don't exist anymore, and future objects and events don't yet exist. If the present alone is real, then how can an infinite series of events in time count as an actual infinite? Past moments of time are not actual. They no longer exist. Hence, an infinite series of past moments is not relevantly analogous to Hilbert's Tell. So, as a good Aristotelian, Feser understands an actual infinite as the existence of an infinite amount of things at a certain time, say t. For Aristotle, it didn't matter if, over the course of time, infinitely many objects existed. An actual infinite is a complete totality of objects existing together at some time t. Further, he writes, "But for a presentist, past moments and past things and events in general no longer exist. They don't exist together, all at once and at the same time, because they don't exist at all. Hence, there really is even prima facie no such thing as an infinite collection of past moments of time. An infinitely old universe just wouldn't be an actual infinite in a relevant sense." Now, at first glance, this objection seems just right. Craig is a presentist, and for a presentist, this really is a problem. For an eternalist, past objects do exist simpliciter. Even if some object does not exist now, it still exists if it exists at some time. But for a presentist, it seems questions about the duration of the past and the existence of actual infinities are two different pair of shoes. And yet, one can maybe seek for a solution. We can assert the following. During any finite time interval, an object can come into existence, say a marble. Then, if the past is infinite, there have been infinitely many past time intervals. Then, there could have been infinitely many marbles coming into existence, and if they could have stayed in existence up until now, there could be an actual infinite. But if an actual infinite is impossible, such a scenario is just impossible. Let's put it that way. 1. If a past of infinite temporal duration is possible, an actual infinite is possible. 2. An actual infinite is not possible. 3. Therefore, a past of infinite temporal duration is not possible. This seems like a great fusion of both issues. But let us take a closer look at premise 1. Let's give a sub-argument for its truth. 1. During any finite past time interval, an object could have begun to exist and continue to exist indefinitely. 2. If the past is of infinite temporal duration, there have been infinitely many past time intervals. Therefore, 3. If the past is of infinite temporal duration, there have been infinitely many finite past time intervals during which an object could have begun to exist and continue to exist indefinitely. Then 4. If 3 is true, there could be an actual infinite, and therefore 5, there could be an actual infinite. This all seems fine, but the critic of the Kalam could deny premise 1. He could reply, yes, it's logically possible for objects to begin to exist and endure during any time interval, but that's irrelevant. An actual infinite is surely also logically possible. What interests us is metaphysical possibility, and it may simply not be metaphysically possible for infinitely many objects to simply begin to exist and endure from then on. Maybe objects can only form from pre-existent material, for example, and therefore it's impossible for infinitely many objects to just form even during an infinite time interval. But this forces the critic to specifically modify metaphysical possibility in a way that suits only his purposes, and such a reply is a double-edged sword. The critic of the Kalam in this special case seems to accept the following. A. Everything that begins to exist has a cause, and B. an actual infinite is impossible. He argues for an infinite past to escape the remedies of A, and he wants an infinite past not to instantiate an actual infinite because he accepts B. So if, according to the critic, a past infinite universe is possible, then could it, for example, on average expand steadily? Let's put this in proper form. If a universe is past infinite and beginningless and on average steadily spatially expanding for a well-defined finite temporal interval of a particular size, it has to have always been spatially infinite. The problem here seems to be that spatial extension, for example, is potentially infinite. So given an infinite past, the critic will be hard-pressed to deny such kind of spatial extension of the universe. But such an expanding universe seems obviously metaphysically possible. Nomological constraints should not matter in such a case. Also, according to the critic, a past infinite universe just exists. There is no cause for it and no explicit reason for its existence. Then, if this universe is just one localized space-time structure, there could be others that simply exist as past infinite universes. Just think of different space-time structures that have no past boundary, so to say. If this universe just exists in such a way, why not others? But such a proposal undermines any rational grounds for thinking there couldn't be infinitely many of such island universes, and these would then constitute an actual infinite. It seems the critic can get around this argument by modifying metaphysical possibility in a way that suits him, but of course, he has to face the issue that people will accuse him of begging the question. The way he sets up metaphysical possibility in this case should commit him obviously to the non-existence of God. But then, why engage with an argument like the Kalam argument? It isn't entirely clear.